Hi everyone, it is Jenny Henderson from Chrysalis Business Support, and welcome to the next installment in my little interview TV series, I guess I'm going to start calling them. So I am joined today by Ian Jarvis of Vertis Accounting in Worcester. Ian is a chartered accountant with an MBA from Birmingham University Business School. He's worked with a number of corporate companies, Korean large corporates, and he set his business up in 2018. And I was introduced to Ian through a personal contact of mine. As most of you know, I do my dragon boat racing, a member of Worcester Dragon Boat Racing Club, and also an executive member of the British Dragon Boat Association. And when Ian was setting up his business, one of our mutual friends said to him, why don't you have a chat with Jenny? Because he knew that I ran my own business and I was doing locally networking. So Ian and I met and we had a chat, and we started working together while he set Vertis up. And he has gone from strength to strength since 2018. And I cannot be more happier for him than how he has worked his business and is now supporting a number of clients in the Worcestershire area, including some that I've introduced him to. And we are now working together on a number of projects. So I'm delighted that he's here. The bio that he sent me, he says he's a fanatical Liverpool supporter. Which we will allow. We do like the Liverpool, but you know, unfortunately, I'm not quite sure what is happening this season, Ian, with the trophy and everything. We'll have to wait and see whether or not they will actually be allowed to be crowned the champions. He's lived in Worcester for 25 years. A bit of a closet IT geek, a gadget man, and an Apple devotee. So, Ian, thank you so much for joining me this morning, and welcome.
No problem. Thank you for that welcome. It's interesting to hear all that stuff about me, but yeah.
Excellent. So, Ian, tell everyone the story behind the name Vertis. I know you and I have talked about it, and I love this story. So I don't know if people are aware of what Vertis means, but I think it's it could be a good pub quiz thing that comes up for people in the future. So, explain the background of Vertis.
Yeah, sure. I was busily thinking what I was going to call my business I was setting up, and lots of accountants use their name and co, and I was determined I wasn't going to do that. So I was scratching around for something. I wanted something quite short and punchy, and I was thinking of all sorts. And eventually, I bit one of those lightning bolt strikes. I drew upon my childhood, really, my childhood and school years really around the Chester area, and Chester makes a big play on its Roman heritage, and the name of Chester in Roman times was Diva. So I thought, I wonder what Worcester's Roman name was, and there it is, Vertis. So I thought, oh, that's a good thing. So yeah, Vertis was it, because that is the Roman name for Worcester, and to date I've only met one person who knew what that was. So it's not something that Worcester makes a great play of, but yeah, that Roman name was what I chose. So.
Fantastic. I love that. I really love that. So yeah, so the Roman name for Vertis. And actually, after you told me that story, I happened to go to our local Sainsbury's in Blackpool, and along their wall, they've got a mural, and it has Vertis in that mural next to it.
I haven't seen that. I go to that shop, but I will look for that next time.
Yeah. Next time you go, it's down by where the cash machines are,
right.
And it's all down there. But yeah, there's a big mural, and it's got Vertis Worcester. And as soon as I saw it, and I went, ha! I knew that because I knew you, and I knew of Vertis Accounting.
You knew I wasn't.
You weren't making it up. You were. You hadn't just thrown me a loop, and I. I'll just tell Jen it's the Roman name for Worcester, but yeah. So excellent. So Ian, I can imagine over the last couple of weeks you have been quite busy, obviously as an accountant, helping clients, sorting things out. You know, obviously it's a tough time for a number of people going through this pandemic, and you know it has affected everybody. Tell me how you've been. Tell me what's been going on and where you're up to with things.
Yeah, as you say, been really busy. I'm really fortunate. I set my business up to operate totally digitally. So I use lots of software. It's all online. As things turn out, that's really useful in this scenario. But I've I've spent quite a bit of time in the early weeks of this just trying to keep abreast of what was going on with the government announcements and keeping up to date on that, and sharing that information with my clients, because I've got a whole mixture of clients there. Some are genuinely thriving on this. There's opportunities coming from what's going on, and they're making really good progress on that. And I've got others at the other end of the spectrum that are completely high and dry, to be honest. So and there's different elements of that whole support package that just steering people into where it is. The most common thing in the early weeks was just explain to people the difference between being self-employed and being a director of a limited company, because I found not a lot of people know that, to be honest. And
Yeah.
so that was quite a common and repeated explanation, and getting people to understand that. But we've also just entered the sort of tax return season as well, so that's very much to the fore at the moment. And I have to be honest, I'm taking advantage of that slightly, in the sense that I've got clients that are sitting around perhaps not doing very much, so I'm getting all the information out of them to get their tax returns done early this year. So hopefully I won't be going into December and January filling out tax returns this year. That's my goal anyway. So
excellent. Yeah, take advantage of this downtime and get all the things that you would have put off while you've got the time, because I suppose as a director, that's one of the legal obligations, I guess, as well. No matter whether you're furloughed or whether what you're doing, you still have to maintain all those paperwork and get that done.
So those statutory duties, you can do that while you're furloughed without compromising that status. So I don't think HMRC are going to complain if you get your tax return in. But there's also real benefits for some people to get them in early, because that crystallises tax refunds as well. And the sooner you get it in, the sooner those refunds will come. HMRC have deferred the ability to or the need to pay certain amounts of tax, like VAT and things like that. But where refunds are due, they're paying those quite promptly. So that's all good.
Excellent. Good tip there, people. Get your tax returns done. If you've got a rebate coming, you might get some money back in the bank.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And it's interesting that you talked about the difference between self-employed and a director. Obviously there was a massive confusion. Do you think that's something that the government did overlook in terms of a difference between a director of a small limited company as opposed to being self-employed?
Well, the legal status is quite clear. I mean, it is to me, and hopefully it is to lots more people now. But there's certainly a difference in that package. But of course, directors are commonly paid with a combination of salary and dividends. And unfortunately, in the court of public opinion, that rather equates people with fat cats and things like that. And clearly, it's not that's not the case. And there's many clients of mine as well who they take that combination. They're still taking much less than 50,000, but the support they're getting from the government is much less. And there's an ongoing debate. I read an article in the newspaper this morning about that as well. So whether the government do give some support to that in the end, because that whole package has changed a number of times. And I think, to be fair to the government, they're working at pace, and that they're also very mindful of the blocking the sort of fraud opportunities and things like that, because that will always get exploited, unfortunately. So let's see how long this goes on for, but it's definitely a difference, and a much lesser level of support for directors of limited companies.
Do you think this will have a knock-on effect when we come out of this situation and the government start to look at policies and procedures for the future about tax returns and rebates and tax payments? Do you think, obviously they're going to have a lot to do to get back some of this money that they've been giving out at this time? It's not, it's not a handout. It's, there's going to be some recompense in the future.
Indeed, and the Chancellor made hints to that effect in one of the press conferences, didn't he? That we're all in this together in terms of being given support or whatever. But there are different levels of tax, and that's why it's attractive for people to set up limited companies, because you can reduce the amount of tax you pay into the system. So I think we're going to see some reforms there. Maybe not this year or next year, but certainly as we go forward. But who knows what that's going to be. But I think there's definitely an agenda there to change some of that.
So, you work with a number of business owners in different industries. What is critical at the moment to business owners to be concentrating on? If you were to give two tips or a couple of tips of advice, what would you be saying to someone? If there's something that you must be doing at the moment, no matter what else is going on around you, this is the critical activity that you need to be looking at and you need to be taking care of. What would you be saying at the moment to somebody like that?
I think this is one of these location moments when the answer is cash, and cash. So being in control of your business cash flow and knowing what that is. I think in ordinary normal times, having a clear handle on your cash position and what it is today, what it is next week, and maybe what it's going to be next month, that's really important. But when times are difficult, it's even more important. So yeah, I think knowing exactly what your cash position is imperative. I mean, the age-old statistics are out there that the majority of small businesses fail in their first 5 years, and of those businesses that fail, I think it's 80% of them fail because they just run out of cash. And if you can't pay your bills when you're due, then you're insolvent. And not overstretching yourself and working well within your cash margins. So that's got implications on both sides of the coin, as it were, in terms of making sure that you collect money due from customers promptly, but also paying your suppliers promptly, but not too early, not late, but also just not stretching yourself so that you can't live within those cash resources, because there's no guarantee that customers are going to pay you just at the moment because they're struggling. And so don't bank on that cash coming in before you've spent it. I think ultimately it's pretty basic sort of housekeeping advice, but it's essential, really.
Yeah. And in terms of a business, is there a level that a business should be always holding in cash reserves? Is there sort of a formula that if a business is looking at this, obviously moving forwards, that if something else happened within their industry, there would always be that level that they would know, okay, I could cope for a month, 2 months, whatever. Is there sort of a ballpark area that people should be looking at in terms of their cash?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any hard and fast rule here, but of course, as a margin of safety, that the more you've got, the better. Clearly, hoarding too much cash means you haven't invested in your business and taking it forward and things. So there's a balance to strike there. But if you've got 3 or 4 months worth of your cash expenses in reserve, then that's obviously a better place to be than if you haven't. Clearly, if you can afford to have 12 months worth of cash, then that's fantastic. But the reality for businesses is that they trade on rather thinner margins of cash than that. But I'd feel pretty comfortable if you were pushing towards 3 to 6 months worth of cash, but it will be different for different businesses, and it just depends on how the nature of your customer base and how secure you are in those. But in those receipts coming in, but there's so many things that you can do to just ensure and make that cash flow more certain. So think things in terms of the software that I work with and setting those sort of things up, just helping people just automate those processes through direct debit routes and things like that. And yes, you you're still giving a credit period to your customers, but you know when the cash is going to arrive, and just automating that and making it easier for you, making it easier for your customers, and just generating some certainty for yourself, I think.
Tell me about this new piece of software that you've been looking at, which is integrating, which will help people with their cash flow.
Yeah, so I've made available to all of my clients a piece of software. It's called Fluidly, and it sits on top of Xero or QuickBooks, and it just interrogates the data automatically for you, and it will produce a pretty detailed cash flow forecast, which you can then build scenarios around. So what if I invest in this? What if I take on an extra employee? What if I furlough some people? And you can build those scenarios around it. But cash flow forecasting is it doesn't have to be that clever, but the fact that this does it automatically for you and just uses your data, so it's looking at the patterns of your expenditure in the past, and it's projecting those forward using sort of artificial intelligence tools, as well as information you've already got in the system about what bills are due for payment and things like that. So it is really, really clever, and it just gives you that sort of I don't know, that glimpse into the future of what your finances might look like in 3 months or in 12 months' time, and yeah, you've always got to be mindful of the assumptions it's making, but it's a really good basis to start, and just getting that picture, and it'll even tell you what date of the month you're going to run out of cash if things carry on as they are and things like that. So,
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's
or not so brilliant.
Yeah, it's good to know in advance, of course. So yeah, I think I've got a few clients that are using that, and some people are looking at it and talk to me about it and saying, how do I make this work for me? But it's something I took the subscription out and made it available to all of my clients if they wish to use it. So I think hopefully that's a helpful tool, and it just maybe puts some people's mind at rest. I mean, there's one survey out there that says 45% of small business owners regularly lose sleep over cash issues. So if I can help people sleep better, then job done.
Perfect. Absolutely. Yeah. No panicking and waking up in the middle of the night. Brilliant. And share with me some. You've chosen the technology route. You've done a lot with Xero, with all these different apps and platforms. And I know I've got the one with HubDoc that I got very excited about when we were scanning PDF documents in, and they were coming straight into Xero, and it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. No, there's nothing hanging around here. Tell me about your client and the lovely Margaret and her brand new room that you managed to achieve for her.
Yeah, that's my favourite story. I think I've mentioned some of that to you before, but so I took on a client who ran a garage, car repairs, MOT business, and they've been trading for about 30 years. And the owner's wife used to do the VAT, and she started doing this 30 years ago, and she had a little book where she wrote everything in, and this task just grew, and 30 years later she still had a book. It was a bit bigger this time, but she was writing every transaction, sales and expenditure and bills into this book, and then get a calculator out, top the page up, and do the VAT return every 3 months. So that was a very long-winded process way of doing it, and so I put Xero in for them. Did lots of automation, as the sort of things you're talking about there, and essentially I made Margaret redundant, and Margaret was really delighted about it. Which is an unusual position, because Margaret went from working 3 days a week as effectively an unpaid volunteer in her husband's business to doing nothing for it. So she was delighted. She had 3 days of time, and on my next visit to when I went to see them, Margaret called me over to look into her room. She come show me this. So she opened a door to a room that I had previously seen was a store, a room with, and this is in the house, not in a business premises, that had all the files and all the paperwork and the bills and everything. That was all gone. The shelves had gone. The room had been redecorated. It was now a new living room, and she had a brand new room. So yeah, Xero not only made her redundant, but gave her a new room in her house. So she was really happy. And I don't have too many of those scenarios, to be honest, but that was really good. So
brilliant.
she was delighted with that.
So she had somewhere to relax and do all the hobbies that she wanted to get done in a new room in the house, as opposed to sitting in amongst paperwork.
All that paperwork gone. So yeah, and all
brilliant.
digitized and moved on, and yeah, so that was all good. But that's, I mean, I've done that for lots of clients. I've done it into some sort of scale. I've not quite seen it spelt out in that level of detail in terms of they get a new room in their house, but literally I operate paperlessly and taking paper out of the system. So capture the document in a photo or a scan, and then just get rid of the paper. There's no need to hold all that paper anymore. It's gone, and just digitize things, and it all happens. And as you've seen, it's just like magic, isn't it? It is. Just ends up in Xero and it's done.
Yeah, brilliant. Fantastic. Ian, thank you so much for joining me today. I've really appreciated your time. I've really appreciated all that bit of advice. I hope you guys have appreciated what Ian has said. As we said, it's cash, cash, cash at this time. So how are you managing your cash? What systems and processes have you put in place? Whether that's an online system, a basic spreadsheet, but just make sure you're keeping a check on those numbers. And if you need to speak to someone like Ian, reach out at this time, and I'm sure he will be available to speak to you and have any questions answered that might be able to help as you move forward. So on the bottom of the comment section, I'll be putting Ian's contact details and his website. So if you want to register for any of his information advice, any of the emails that get sent out with great content, or you want to just reach out and have a chat with him, then please do so. He has my full support as an accountant, and is just an all-round lovely guy, as I'm sure you can appreciate from the chat we've had here. So thanks very much for watching this one, and I will see you again soon. Look out for who I've got on the next episode and who's joining me shortly. So see you all soon, and take care and stay safe.